My name is Angelina Avedano, and this is InterSpace, where we explore the spaces between us. Join me for discussions on a series of realities with thinkers, writers, thought leaders, and artists. Kristine Bohmer is a graduate of UMass Amherst with concentrations in both communications and gender studies. She received her master's degree in educational leadership from Bridgewater State University and currently works in student affairs at Massasoit Community College. She has previously held positions at Bridgewater State University's Office of Institutional Diversity, as well as the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center, which is a national leader in anti-bullying programming for K-12 students. Kristine is an ardent women's rights activist, and when she is not working, she enjoys movies, reading fiction, spending time with friends and family, and playing with her two dogs, Sushi and Taco. Hello, Kristine, and welcome to InterSpace today. Thank you for being willing to have this conversation. I know we're going to have a great time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, me too. I had breakfast outside today. It was a beautiful weather, and I know that when we spoke earlier, you were telling me that this is like your favorite time of year.
Oh, by far. September 1st to January 1st. That is my time. So,
yes. What makes it your favorite?
I'm not a heat person, so I know that seems strange. I feel like everyone loves summer, but I'm not a heat or a sun person, really. I love the changing of the leaves. I love the cooler weather. It's not quite winter yet. I love pumpkins and fall and everything that goes with it. I love Samhain. So it is October's my favorite month. And then I would definitely say that this time throughout the holidays would be my absolute favorite.
Yeah, it was fun a couple of weeks to get out all the sweaters and all the cozy clothes.
Absolutely.
The cozy clothes are coming out. So, well, one of the things that I'd like to talk with you about, you've been really open about your working with Graves' disease in your life and coming to terms with that. Can you talk a little bit about what that has meant for you and what changes came about as you've learned to manage this disease? Sure.
Graves' disease hit me at a time, and for those who don't know, it's an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. It hit me at a time where my entire life I've been a plus size girl, and when I was much younger, it was a struggle. I was bullied. It was a really rough time for me growing up, and I've struggled with my weight my whole life. And then there came a period where I had been laid off from my job when the recession hit back when Obama took office, and I used that time to really focus on myself and started working out really vigilantly. Was on Weight Watchers, and I ended up losing a tremendous amount of weight. And then, because there really was no jobs, the economy was bad, I created my own job, and I became a fitness instructor, then a personal trainer, and then my absolute favorite, which was a Zumba instructor, and I made it a full-time job, which meant, unhealthily, that I was exercising 3 hours a day, because you only got paid if you gave a class, and I was working out, and I was definitely the thinnest I was in my whole life. And I, at the time, mistakenly thought that was healthy, not realizing how unhealthy it actually was. I was really starving myself and not realizing it, working out to an absolute extreme that is not healthy. And it was also a time of a lot of stress. My mother-in-law had stage 4 cancer. My husband and I had gotten laid off on the same day, so he had been working odd jobs, trying to make ends meet. Finances were really difficult. My father then got sick. It was very, very stressful. And unbeknownst at the time, these kind of autoimmune disease are often triggered by periods of intense stress. So and in addition to the stress I was putting my body under, exercising so much, I started to have symptoms I didn't recognize for what they were, such as insomnia. I was losing hair. I would get really, really shaky and like what I call jelly-legged, and I'd feel like I was going to pass out. And it feels a lot like when your blood sugar drops. So I thought, oh, maybe I'm just not eating enough for all the exercise I'm doing. Let me up my calories a little bit. Totally missing all of these signs that something was really wrong with my body, until one day I went to start class and I couldn't do it. I was gray. I was shaking. I could barely walk. I went to the emergency room, and it was very scary because I went to the emergency room. It was kind of like a urgent care, and my heart rate was going almost 5 times faster than it should have been.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even feel it. I had been running on that for so long, I didn't even know. Was rushed into the hospital. Everything was happening so fast, I didn't even realize what was going on. It was difficult to diagnose, but I was in what they call a full-blown thyroid storm. My thyroid had just basically went berserk, and it attacked my heart. And luckily I've always had low blood pressure, no issues with my heart previously. So my heart was strong, and I was able to recover from this without any problems. But through this, I was in the hospital for over a week. I was very, very ill, and I could not, in a blink of an eye, I lost my profession there. I loved being a Zumba instructor. It was part performance, part dancing. I had a really good following of women who I definitely felt like I was helping. It really felt like my calling. For the first time in my life, I really felt like I was doing something that I loved, and I lost it like that. And it was very, very difficult. And then on top of that, the medication, the thing that I've learned about the endocrine system is that it's very individualized. So what your levels are supposed to be might not be right for me, and vice versa. And they just have this little thing like everyone's supposed to fit into this box. Well, in order to make me fit into that box, they over-medicated me with several different types of medication. The combination of meds put on almost 80 pounds in 3 months, and I wasn't really eating. And it was everything I had worked so hard for and everything I had fought against. It threw me into a depression. Obviously, I was heartbroken. I lost my career. I gained this weight back. I was too sick to go back to work. It was a really dark time for me. And I had to, after months of this and realizing that, and this was also hard because I was raised to believe doctors know best. Yeah, that's not always true. And I've now realized that you really do have to self-advocate in the healthcare system. I will never blindly take medication like that again. I will do research of my own and get second opinions before ever doing that again. But at that point, it fried my thyroid. So I went from hyperactive thyroid to hypo. And I've been unable to ever lose that weight again. It's stayed on me it doesn't matter if I eat salads for a month or cheeseburgers for a month, it'll stay exactly the same. So I had to, after years of fighting with my weight. The first time I was brought to Weight Watchers, I must have been 9 years old. So this is something I had to then just be okay with being big. And this was a new journey for me of not just saying, oh, you have to love yourself the way you are, but actually love yourself the way you are. And it's not always easy. So I still do Zumba, although I've been asked to teach again. I won't. I just take the classes and enjoy it. And it's something I do, on weekends, and I enjoy it very, very much. And I'm still good at it, which makes me feel really good about myself because most people don't see a woman of my stature and realize that, oh, wow, she can dance. Okay. Mm-hmm. People judge plus size people every day. I remember being in the gym and doing the stairs, and it'd be like the stair climber, and I would do 30 minutes at my size, and it happened. And no one meant it maliciously. I don't really believe in my heart people meant it maliciously, but at least 9 times people would come up to me over the course of however many months and be like, wow, you can do the stairs for that long? I can't do the stairs. And I'm like, no one goes up to anyone else on the stairs and says this. What's so shocking about me being on the stairs? And then I realized it's an unconscious bias against plus size folks.
Yeah, you're getting to a really important point about what is fitness actually, and what does that mean. And it sounds like you've had to come to terms with your own, preconceptions about that.
And it was difficult, and I don't wish anyone that kind of illness or journey to get to that point. I'm glad I figured it out now in my 40s and not my 60s, where my 70-year-old mother is still on Weight Watchers, counting points at 100 pounds. And I'm like, Mom, you're 70 years old, you can have that cannoli. It's going to be fine, you know? And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be worried about that at 70 years old. I want to enjoy the rest of my life and be okay with who I am. But I realize now at the size that I'm at, which is like a size 20, 22, I am healthier now mentally and physically than I was at a size 8. I exercise regularly. I no longer emotionally eat or eat out of boredom. I can recognize those signs, something I never could before. If you're on the American diet roller coaster, you know that it's diet, and then cheat day. I don't have cheat days. If you don't have cheat days, you don't even eat as much because you allow yourself to eat when you want it. And then you don't need to binge it. You don't need to go crazy with it because you're not depriving yourself anymore. And it was an extremely difficult mentality to break.
It's true. I mean, I'm right there with you, you know, so I completely resonate with what you're saying. But the diet culture in our country has created that is its own eating disorder, to be so hyper focused on every moment. I mean, I too have struggled with this my whole life, and also coming to that place of I don't obsess about food all day. It is not the first thing that I'm thinking about. What am I going to eat today? That was the only thing I was ever thinking about all the time, whether I was out of control or, you know, super focused on a diet. That's all I thought. My thought processes were obsessed with what I was going to be eating all day, and just breaking that habit and getting out, because that's its own eating disorder. Like, you've lost your mind if you're obsessing about it from morning till night.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Absolutely true. And then it's almost worse when you're on the diet culture because you are constantly thinking about, I mean, even to this day, and it's been a good, I don't know, since 2013, I can still look at a plate of food and tell you exactly how many points it is. Like, I mean, it's like I was brainwashed on that. And if I didn't hit those points, if I went over, I was so hard on myself and angry with myself. My day is ruined. I can't go back to that ever. I can't go back. It's not worth it. All I can do is be the healthiest I can. But you brought up a really good point about the misconceptions of being fat and health. Like, for me, you look at me, I'm definitely a big girl. And people will think that I'm unhealthy. Meanwhile, I have low blood pressure, low cholesterol, low blood sugar. I exercise. You know, I do everything I can to try to keep myself healthy. You know, do I have extra weight on? Yes. You know, and does that hurt my knees and ankles sometimes? Yep, it does. But that doesn't mean I stop trying, or that I'm lazy, or that I'm not fit. And even if I wasn't healthy, or I was doing things, whose business is that? Who are you to judge what I do, what I am? So that's a really tough place to be in. And as you also probably know, plus size folks in this country have absolutely no legal protections. We're not a protected class. I could be made fun of by my employer to my face repeatedly, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's hard. People openly make fun of people still. I got heckled at the beach 3 years ago, and it was really, even though I knew that those grown men were jerks, it still hurt my feelings as much as it did at like 12 years old. It still hurt.
Of course it does. It's one of the last, you know, areas in which people can be mean and bully you and discriminate, and it's accepted. It's totally fine. And not too many people think about that. I think that also is a little bit with age, particularly for women in this country. But because it's just not acceptable to get older. You become a little bit more invisible the older you get. But yeah, you're right. It's just one of the places where there's no protection and you're shamed. So if you speak up, it's like, well, you don't really deserve to be treated with respect because look at you. You've let yourself go, right? It's just an accepted kind of undercurrent of that mentality.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me really sad. But I did see you speak. You gave a wonderful presentation on body image and positivity. I guess, with COVID and everything, I think that was, 5 years?
2018, I think. It feels like 100 years ago.
I know it does. You were so inspiring. Your story was just really, you're just so confident, and I just came away feeling like, yeah, yes, yeah.
Thank you so much. That's such a kind thing to say. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, so I definitely, I admire you, and you've given me a lot of inspiration, and it just helps to have people that I can relate to and look at and say, it's okay to accept myself for who I am. And it's hard. I work with it every single day. I mean, I don't know that I will ever, be done with that battle or that journey, because it is so deep, and it started so early in childhood. Like you, I was taken to, and put on my first diet, as a child. And I know it was well-meaning, but it started a cycle for me that has been with me ever since. And I'm 55.
Me too. And it is hard. You're right. There are definitely days, especially days in the summer in particular. Probably another reason why I don't like the summer. I'm not someone who is comfortable wearing shorts or tank tops or bathing suits or even less clothes, even when I was a smaller person. It's just not something I'm very comfortable with. So I always feel other in that season. And clothes shopping is difficult, and finding things that fit you, finding clothes, things that people don't think about. Like if I go on a trip, I have to pack 2 suitcases, one to take with me, because I can't just go into a gift shop and purchase clothing if my luggage gets lost. That's not an option for me. So there are things you always have to think about as a plus size person. Like if I go to this cookout, will there be chairs that I can sit in that aren't gonna break or go into the mud? Like I actually have my own like sturdy folding camping chair that's kind of meant for plus size folks. It's like it just has good sturdy legs and whatnot, and I take it with me at cookouts and stuff, so I always know I'll feel comfortable in my space. But there are things we always have to think about, to not be humiliated, to not feel that shame, and always have that in the back of your mind, unfortunately.
Do you have people in your life that you feel that complete support and love for who you are, that helps you with this?
Yes, I am very lucky. I have family and my husband. My husband is never, and I've been with him now for 21 years, he's seen me at multiple sizes. We were together when I was bigger, then I lost weight. Bigger. He never once has ever made a comment about my weight, has never been anything but supportive. He's a wonderful man who's never made me feel self-conscious in my skin ever. My family too, especially since my close friends and family know what I went through, which makes it easier. It's not like I can walk around with a shirt that says, yeah, my thyroid did it. It's not how that works. So
I don't know, that might work.
Yeah, you think? It's like, it's not me. Blame the gland in my throat.
Yeah.
As I eat this cheeseburger. No, I'm just kidding.
But there's another point though, right? Because if you're out eating, it's like you're judged for what is on your plate or what you're ordering. If you want to have, do I dare order dessert or even split dessert? Because I shouldn't have those. I shouldn't be allowed to eat those things.
And you know what? You think for a while that's in your head, like, oh, do people really judge me? But when I was thin, it was different. The looks, the tone, how I was asked, when I was asked more. Would you like dessert? Whereas like, oh, you don't need dessert. Like I wanted to believe I was being paranoid about that, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Even if people don't mean it, even kind people, it's almost a societally unconscious bias that happens, and plus size people are treated differently. Plus size women in particular. So it is something. And so it's hard when you're someone who's trying to be a body positive activist and feel good about yourself, and you are contending against the world, against society itself, against Instagram and filters and all these bikini shots and things. Like I've just stopped with social media because I don't want to compare myself to other people, because then therein lies the mental hamster wheel that you're on.
Yeah.
I don't even have and I probably should, to be honest with you, but I don't even have a full length mirror.
Yeah,
this is what I look like. I do everything I can not to pick myself apart.
That bit me in the behind, I got to tell you, not having the full length mirror. because one time I was walking by and I realized that my socks didn't match, and you could see them. And I'd been like standing in front of a class teaching, but because I didn't have a full length mirror, I didn't even notice. So
that's what you played off. Yep. I'm an artist. Artists don't wear matching socks,
That's
people.
what it is.
That's all.
Because I had these wider pants. It was a jumpsuit, and they were a little bit shorter, and I just like had no clue what was going on down there.
It happens. It happens.
So, boy, I'm checking that stuff now. I check. I mean, not to mention the fact there'll be cat hair and all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
On the calves where the cat likes to. So full length hair might be helpful.
Yep, I probably should invest in that. Yeah, I agree. It's,
Or you just laugh it off and be like, that's my weird, professor who's teaching in her mismatched socks. That's like,
and I think that's the beauty of age. And you mentioned when you get a little bit older, I just don't care anymore. Like, I'm just like, yeah, I've got white dog hairs on me. I have a dog. There you go. Like, I am what I am. And if you know me, I'm an open book. And I know not everyone is that way. And then sometimes that isn't the greatest thing in the world, but it is what it is. So
yeah, well, that comes through. And I don't know about you, Kristine, but those are the people I want to be around. Those are the people who inspire me when I see individuals in all walks of life who are fully owning themselves and comfortable in their skin, no matter what is going on with them. Those are the people that attract me. They give me energy, and it makes me aspire to be like that. Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's how I am as well. I also could get energized from other folks like that. So I hear you.
So we kind of talked about the diet culture, but I was interested in. I know you talked about Zumba. Mm-hmm. But are there other communities and support systems? I know you said family, but were there other communities and support systems that you found helpful in staying resilient, both with Graves and your self-image?
Family, and I do have some close friends. I'm also part of an online group called the Cornucopia Collective, which is pagans, which I am also pagan. So, which is from around the greater Boston area. And that has been a wonderful resource of just having other women who are kind of on a journey of their own as well, and feeling comfortable in yourself and growing and learning, and hopefully part of other groups as well. And that'll be that's kind of where I'm meeting new people. It is hard, and we're still in the pandemic to really meet new people and find that find those relationships that make you stronger and inspire you. And I think that's what we're looking for. I think we're all looking for connection. And I admit that I wish I had some more communities and a little bit stronger connections.
So how did you find this pagan community? And I guess I also want to touch on, when did that come about in your life? What drew you to that philosophy or way of being in the world, and why did that speak to you?
Sure. Well, the easy first question is I found them on Meetup because I was looking for connection and maybe I got lonely during the pandemic. I wasn't leaving my house at all. And even though I was chatting with friends online and stuff, I really missed people. So I went on Meetup in the hopes of finding, I have been a practicing witch. I would not say I'm Wiccan because I don't strictly follow everything that comes down in Wiccan religion, although I am very well versed in Wicca. But I have been Wiccan or pagan, I should say, excuse me, a witch since I was 16 years old, although I think I knew somewhere much longer than in childhood because I had very vivid dreams of being other women and I remembered them. And I always was drawn, if you look at pictures of me as a child, I was dressed as a witch every Halloween. Like I just didn't realize it then. I'm Irish Italian and I was raised Roman Catholic. And about the time I had questions very young, and those questions weren't looked upon in a kind way in my religion, in my CCD classes. And I had issues. So about 9th and 10th grade, they really, right before you're confirmed, they really started, and not everybody's church experiences this. I know lots of people who really find faith and comfort in Catholicism, and that's awesome. It's wherever you find your faith, good for you. For me, I knew also very young that I was bisexual, and they were very much preaching anti-LGBTQ sentiments that I was not comfortable with, and also very, very anti-abortion, pro-life. And I had my own thoughts on that. And my views and their views were definitely conflicting. And then more instances of child molestation and child abuse came out, and that was it for me. Mm-hmm. I just stopped buying that particular religion. Jesus wasn't Catholic, and that's how I'm going on that. And it just didn't work for me. And that was hard. My grandmother, I went through confirmation for my grandmother and whatnot, even though at that point I was already a witch. Mm. And I did that for her, and I never went back after that. I only go for weddings and funerals now. And I am very respectful to those who find their faith wherever that may be. It just wasn't for me. And it was a difficult break. Later on, my mom kind of pulled away from the Catholic Church, also due to all of the child abuse that was covered up over and over. That was just the breaking point for us. So that kind of got me there. And then when I was 16, I got in a car accident, and I broke my neck, and I died on the operating table, and they brought me back. And after that, and this is probably a little weird, and I usually don't tell a lot of people this because I get judged, but I started to see things, and I started to feel things, and I was scared. I was really scared of this, and I was terrified, and I had nowhere to turn. And I found myself in a New Age bookstore in East Bridgewater at the time called the Angel's Loft. And I met a high priestess there, and she was amazing and very loving and kind. And she gave me some books to read. And I hit it off with her. And she was, she was an older woman, older than me, who had a lot of wisdom. And I learned a lot from her. And I started taking what they call a Wicca 101 class with her. And it's kind of your first step into learning more about Wicca, which paganism, witchcraft, Wicca, whatever you follow, it's a nature-based religion. And I think a lot of people immediately get freaked out because they think it has something to do with Satan or Satanism. It has nothing to do with that. It's a Christian construct that has nothing to do with us. These are the old ways of following nature, finding God and spirituality in the world around you, in nature and in the creation. And following the seasons and what that means, because it was an agricultural-based religion that followed the seasons and gave thanks at certain times of the year for crops and for harvest and fertility. And I found great comfort there. And I found my heart there. And I just started researching. And I realized that there are things I feel, and when I feel it resonate, it's the right way for me. And other things that maybe I don't. So I just kind of go with that, and I definitely learned to listen to my gut and my heart, and I think that's where I got started and what led me here. And then through the pandemic, I had moved to New York. I lived there for a decade. I came back. My coven of my youth has spread to the four corners of the country and have started their own lives and covens, and I really missed that group. I really missed practicing with a group, and I've just always been a solitary witch for all these years. So I was really looking for a group to practice again with, and that's how I found the Cornucopia Collective. And I started 1 year ago. It'll be 1 year on Samhain, which is the Witch's New Year. And I started going to all of the Sabbaths and full moon meditations through this online group. So I wanted to celebrate every Sabbath this particular past year with other people, even if it was online. And I have done that, and it really, really has helped, and it's brought me back to that place I wanted to spiritually, that I probably put on the back burner because I was too busy living life to be in touch with that. So, but like I said, wherever you find your faith, if you find great comfort, then that is the right path for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said you had this kind of experience. Would you classify it as a typical near-death experience? Did you have this kind of moment of, expansion and reflectivity that allowed you to look at your life in a different way? Or you just came back and you just had new
sensitivities?
A little of both. I didn't see a tunnel with a bright light, but what I did see, and I thought it was a dream. It very much felt like a dream. I didn't actually know that I had died on the operating table until a doctor told me much later when I woke up. But in the dream, which turned out to be real, I was floating above the table while they were fusing my neck. So they'd already stapled me up. What happened, there was a malfunction in the tube that was giving me oxygen. So they had to flip me over gingerly and then do this. So there was it wasn't very long, but it was a few seconds of like, she's failing, roll her over, take it up. And I could see all that. There was no sound. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I mean, I wasn't scared. I was just watching it as if it wasn't me. Just like, what's happening? And then the next thing I know, woke up, I lost all track of time. And that's when a doctor said, oh, you're so lucky. This is what happened. And I told my mom that this is what the doctor said. She said, that couldn't have happened. That didn't happen. But she was also so terrified through all of this that I think she was in a haze. But I knew it happened, and it started almost right away in the hospital. I was lying in the hospital bed. Of course, I have a big collar on. There was other injuries, of course, not just my neck in this car accident. And I woke up, and there was a woman standing at the end of my bed. And I remember she was beautiful. I remember she had long blonde hair. She was dressed in white. And I thought it was a hospital gown, actually. And I was like, oh, who are you? And she was like, I'm your new roommate. I'm Vicky. And I was like, oh, hey, Vicky. I'm like, is this, because there was a light over my bed. I was like, is this light bothering you? Do you want me to turn it off? And she just said, no, honey, it's fine. You go back to sleep. That was it. I woke up. So when I woke up, I said to my mom, like, where's Vicky? She's like, who's Vicky? It's like, my roommate. She's like, you don't have a roommate. This is a single room. And I was like, what? Like, I saw her. And that was the first realization that I was like, what's happening here? And I wasn't really on a lot of drugs at that point because they had like basic pain meds, that, like ibuprofen and stuff they did not want. For whatever reason, I just wasn't on heavy pain meds. So it wasn't like I was high. So I was just kind of like, that was strange. And that's when I started having sleep paralysis, which is terrifying. I don't know if you've ever had sleep paralysis, when you open your eyes, your mind is awake, but your body's still asleep. At least that's what science says. And you see things. And I kept seeing someone holding me down, and it was just a black shape. And this went on for a long time. And it was terrifying. And there's a lot of people who've experienced the exact same thing and seen the exact same thing. I'm like, it's strange that we all hallucinate the exact same thing. And that's when I found the Angel's Loft and was able to get more help. I found that if I left one of those, like the glass candle burning at night, if I slept on my side. But over the years, I realized that I stopped being afraid and could fight back in my mind, and it stopped happening altogether. So if you ask me, I sometimes think that that's an in between the worlds, half asleep, half awake, and it feeds on fear. Because once I stopped being afraid, the episodes ended. So I try to tell folks that, because the other people I know who've experienced this, they refuse to go to sleep, or they do things to stay awake. And I'm like, that's not the way. You have to face your fear. And those episodes were very terrifying. And that led me down this new road because I had to find an answer. Science wasn't helping me. And it's scary. So, and when you tell people this, and I don't know why I feel so comfortable telling you on a podcast, but you tell people this and they think you're a flake. They think that you're a ditz, you're weird, that, oh, she's flaky, she's flighty. They're very quick to dismiss other ways of thinking, It's like that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean when she hands him a jar of dirt and he's like, what is this? It's a jar of dirt. And she's like, well, then give it back. And he's like, no, it's my jar of dirt. Then it works. So yes. It's the same with like crystals. Like, what do those crystals do? I'm like, well, do they make you feel better? Do you feel that they make you feel better? Do you feel that connection? Then they work. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really individual and what you believe in. And it's hard because sometimes I've only recently, over the last couple of years, came out of the broom closet because of the judgment that goes along with being a witch. But I've been one.
I think it's interesting to think about something that you said,
and move that from the personal to the collective, because you said that in this experience with this dark thing holding you down, it's almost like, yes, I believe we can have these experiences in these in between spaces, and that space between sleeping and waking is absolutely one of these spaces where you kind of have a foot in both worlds, right? And so there's a long history of oracles and visionaries and seers and shaman who live in that realm, who live and work in that realm, more with more intention than we generally have in the West. But what you said struck me, because this idea of something feeding on fear. And we could say that the something was something outside of ourselves, but we could also say that something was ourselves. And that there's something in us that will either choose to feed on fear, and then that kind of exacerbates the problem. But once you recognize that that's a thing, that is what perpetuates the cycle, then you can break it. And so if we move that into what's happening in the world today, I think it's really important to be intentional about that fear, because, and I know that we've talked about this before, whether it's, in the workplace, or whether we see it, what's going on in the world, in the nation, or in the world as a whole, that fear is a really big problem. So I feel like that piece of wisdom that you learned on a personal level can be applied to what's happening in the world.
I agree with that completely. And it's hard. It's hard not to be afraid today. I mean, I have had to stop watching the news, because that's how they make money now, is just pushing those fears into you. And there are real fears out there. COVID-19 wasn't a joke. A lot of people lost loved ones. A lot of people lost their lives. It's not being fearful in that. It's a real thing. But you're right. How you handle that fear is how you can move forward, and or if you stay in place. So I think it's a challenge for every human on this planet to face their fears and learn.
Do you feel like your experience has allowed you to overcome fears, your own personal fears, in a very specific way?
Some of them, not all of them. I'll be honest. There's always going to be some fears that I think we all have deep inside for whatever reason. But yes, some of them definitely. I don't fear the outworldly. I can say that. I don't fear the forest. I don't fear ghosts. I don't fear things that I cannot see, even though they may be there and I know they're there. The real fears are the ones that are here. The real fears are the humans that we face every day, and the challenges that we have. I mean, some of my biggest fears, of course, and I think it's everyone's, is losing loved ones, losing people we care about. Sometimes it's easier to think of losing yourself than losing someone that you love so dearly. Man, I can't even think about losing my dog without tearing up. So there are definite fears in this world, but I think we face them, one at a time, head on, and do what we can. I just try not to get into the fears that are constructed by the media, or by, someone trying to sell me something. This is going to happen if you don't buy this. That's stuff that we're being fed every day. That's the stuff I try not to buy into.
And, how do you I know you work with students a lot, you work with college students a lot, helping them. You might share a little bit about what your role is and how you help them to navigate their way through college. But I'm just wondering if that's something you bring, the wisdom that you bring in your conversations with them around fear and really about owning your own identity.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have even more of those conversations with students. I work in the Dean of Students' office, and a lot of the stuff that we see day to day are really like immediate emergencies: food insecurity, housing insecurity, and those kind of fears. I do my best with helping them with resources, letting them know they have someone to come to, making sure that they feel that they can trust me to come, because it's hard to tell someone you don't know that you don't have money for food. It can be uncomfortable. It can be embarrassing. It's something that is not easy. And we're there to help. So I'm glad that I think even if I don't have those specific conversations about fear, there is something about me, because students do trust me and do tell me things, and I'm able to help them and give them the resources they need or point them in the right direction. Even if it's one thing, just helping a student by walking them physically to another office they need to go at and staying with them while they talk to a financial aid representative, or they need to apply for a technology loan, or even just having someone with them can be a great comfort and they feel less nervous. So I think just me being me and what I've learned is enough to kind of help those students get what they need. And we have a lot of students that have a lot of outside factors facing, a hindrance to their education. Things, full-time jobs, family, children, older relatives they're taking care of, just things that they have, challenges that, maybe I didn't have to face when I went to college, or other folks, privileges that I never, I had that people did. I worked 3 jobs in college, but I knew I never had to worry if I was going to have a meal, or if I was going to have food, or if I was going to have a roof over my head. I didn't have those worries in college, so even though I definitely had to work and I definitely needed to support myself in college, I still knew I had a safety net. Many of our students don't have that at all. And I can't imagine taking a full class load, trying to get a better life for myself while also facing all these challenges. So it can be, it's very rewarding work, but it can also be very hard. Sometimes there are issues that you can't help with, and those are the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. You have such a great sense of purpose around helping students. What was it that brought you? How did you come to be in this role? What was the trajectory of your life that brought you there to help others?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. When I was leaving college, I loved college. I was that student. I loved it. I did all my screw ups in high school, and I got my life together in college. I went to UMass Amherst, and I had the best 4 years. And I was very involved. I was an RA. I loved it. And as college was ending, I was on the road to decide whether I wanted to go right into getting my grad degree and be in residential life, or I could just follow my dreams and go to New York City. I went to New York City, and I had those 2 paths in front of me, and I went and I worked in television, and I spent all of my 20s in New York City through 9/11, through all sorts of excitement and bumps and whatnot. I met my husband in New York. And I lived there for a decade, and then he and I lost our jobs on the exact same day when the recession hit, and we decided it was time. I had been missing New England for a while, and it was time to come back. And that's when I started working out, and I went down that path of a fitness instructor and whatnot. And then after I got sick, I realized, well, what do I want to do? I don't want to just have any old job. And then I thought back, I'm like, well, this was your other path. You were thinking about going into higher education. Why don't you try that again? So I started small with a part-time job at Bridgewater State University. And then once I got my strength back and my health back, I was able to apply for a full-time position there, working in institutional diversity. And I loved that. I loved working on equity issues and doing trainings. And that's how I got into presenting. And I really enjoyed that. But I also realized in that particular office, I didn't have a lot of one-to-one relationships with students. It was a lot of professional trainings for faculty and staff, and a lot of, dealing with bias response and maybe some issues there. But I didn't have that student experience that I wanted to have. So while I was at Bridgewater, I got my master's degree I got a master's in education, in higher education, leadership. So I took that and I applied to Massasoit Community College, where I felt that the community college mission was something I really wanted to be a part of. I really wanted to be a part of an open enrollment institution where anyone could come and learn. And I got a job right in student affairs, and I worked for Dr. Slandy DeJuice, who is still a mentor and an amazing leader. I am not exaggerating when I say I would have followed her into battle. And I learned a lot from her, and I really enjoyed working for her. And, as times change and people go to other positions, she is now vice president of student affairs at Springfield College. I've stayed and I've learned and I've grown in the role. And now I'm the frontline person in the Dean of Students office. So I'm that person you see with, you got a problem, it goes through me first. So I can usually direct it, answer it, move it along, find what you need. But that's become kind of my role in student affairs. And I really like it. I've had an opportunity or two to leave this position and I've chosen not to. I really, really do love working at student affairs and working at a community college. I think that is definitely something that is in my heart. So,
it makes me think about how important female mentors are and those relationships that we have with women who are inspiring to us. And were there other women that were standouts for you that helped you to come into yourself in such a beautiful way?
Well, yeah. One was the woman I spoke of from the Angels Loft, was one of the first teachers I've had. Dr. DeJuice, for sure. I had an amazing professor in college that I learned a lot from, and she took a chance on me and made me a research assistant and helped me, even let me write a little for her book. And that was really exciting as an undergrad to be allowed to do that, to be treated like a colleague rather than a kid. So that was Dr. Jaris Hansen. She was amazing. And over the years, I've had, women come in and out of my life that I've just felt a connection to. I find that I learn a lot from women that may be just a little bit older than me, just enough to get that wisdom. And I feel like I can learn a lot from women. And, I hate to say it, and I know everyone thinks their mom is the best, but my mom is. She is a strong, amazing woman, hard worker, brilliant. Had she been born at a different time, I think she would have ended up as a lawyer or a doctor. She's just an amazingly honest person. My mom is. So she's been a role model for me for a really long time. And it's funny, my mom was always very kind of proper, but as she's gotten older, man, she drops some F-bombs. She'll tell you exactly what you think. I can see the transition of my own mom and how she's grown. And this new version of my mom is hilarious. I love her. I'm just like, oh my God, Kathy, what do you... And quick story. Let me just tell... She recommended a series of books to me that we enjoy reading, fiction books. I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. Yeah, it's about some 6 brothers, has a supernatural aspect. I like those things. So I'm reading it, and it gets to probably the dirtiest sex scenes I have ever read in my life. I mean, makes 50 Shades of Grey look like a coloring book. And I was like, Mom, how could you, what? The thought of her reading this was like, oh my God. She's like, oh, you know what, you just skim that part and move on. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Kathy, whatever. I was like blushing alone in my room reading it. I was like, oh my word, this is filth. I love it.
Who's proper now? Who's proper now?
And I read all 7 of those books too. It's just saying.
More than once. At least those pages.
But that's how I knew my mom's gotten there, when she recommended this book series to me. And I was like, all right there. Okay.
Well, it sounds like your mom has come into her crowndom.
She has. And I hope to be half the woman she is someday. So.
It is really important and wonderful to have those relationships, but I find it can be really difficult to have relationships with women.
Yes, this is definitely a problem I've had my whole life. I'm one of those people that connects very quickly with women. Women usually like me. They don't think I'm a threat. And I there's a line from an Ani DeFranco song that said, everyone secretly hates the prettiest girl in the room. And I hate how true that sounded at the time, because I don't know why women are that way. Is it because we've been held down for so long? There's only so much room at the table that we have to compete with each other. Is it an internal thing, competing for mates? I have no idea. But I do know that every year of my life until about 2012, when I had enough, there was always a mean girl in it at some point. Even in my adult life, I've always ran into a mean girl. There's no other word for it, just a mean girl. I'm lucky. I have quite a good handful of close, wonderful female friends. But all those years, every year of dealing with certain women like that, it makes you not trust women relationships right away. And it makes me sad sometimes because we should be lifting each other up. And until Slandy Dejuice, there was always women in the workplace who said, yeah, we should lift each other up, but never did. Slandy was the first person who really did. Like, she right away got me in an amazing professional development, asked me what I needed, asked me what my goals were, how she could help me attain them, did, like, not just words, but went out and found professional developments that she thought I would really benefit from. She really invested in me. And I want to do that for someone else someday in one way or another. So I try to do it with my work study students and they laugh. But it is hard, and I don't know why that is all the time. All I know now is that my radar is much better for finding genuine female friendships. And sometimes they hit like lightning, like the way I met you. I feel like we hit it off like almost immediately, and sometimes you just know a good egg, if you will. And sometimes you just, as you get older too, I think you can smell the drama and you know who's drama and who isn't and what you're willing to be a part of. And I'm just not. I think I didn't have a lot of self-esteem in my teenage years, so I accepted less than. I accepted friends who maybe didn't treat me well or said little snide remarks or nasty things to make themselves feel better, and I put up with it. But now in my age, I'm just like, see ya. I don't need that in my life. I don't give it a second thought. I wish I could tell 20-year-olds that and have them really believe me that you don't have to be friends with people who aren't kind to you or treat you less than. It was a lesson learned. I'm glad I've learned it. But it's hard.
Didn't you tell me that you had some focus in your education on either women's studies or gender studies?
Yes, my major was communications, and then about, I don't know, halfway through sophomore year, I realized I started just taking all these women's studies classes because I found them so interesting. And very challenging my thoughts on things, because really it was gender studies and learning a lot. It was called women's studies because I'm dating myself now, but it's now gender studies. And it was really a lot of theoretical thought and we had some really great conversations, not just about, being a woman, but also, what has been the dynamic in America with Black women and white women? What is the dynamic with how we treat women of color and how this happened? Like, the conversations were deep and really thought provoking. And it really started my path down diversity, inclusion, and equity work. That's really what got it going. So by the time I realized I was almost through my senior year, I had enough to double major because I had just kept taking these classes. So that's what I did. And I've used those classes and that knowledge in every job that I've been in since, and every aspect of my life. So it's definitely changed my life. I mean, I went to college. There was a lot of things I didn't know. Language that I use that is so inappropriate now that I cringe thinking about it. And you just have to be willing to know and learn. And I had one class where we had to write, our whole class was about your own self-biography. And I kept meeting with the professor and I just wasn't getting it. I wasn't getting to what she wanted. And then it was through a racial lens. And then I had to really dissect things that I've done, said, seen, and I put that on paper, and she's like, now you have it. Now you're getting it. But I didn't want to admit those things. I didn't want to see those things in myself. I didn't want to see that I said these things or thought these things, because I knew at that point that it was ignorance and it was gross. And I didn't want to admit that I had grown up that way, or that I had family members who talked like that, and I had to face that. And she made me face it. And it was one of those moments where a female professor really hit me. And I was just like, oh, I understand now. I understand why you kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And I get it. And I think that any college student who can have those kind of moments with a professor in that class and that moment of just like a light bulb going off, it's life-changing. It changes your whole path, trajectory, how you think, how you relate to other people. So I've definitely got a lot out of women's studies. I highly recommend everyone take a women's studies class if they can.
Yeah, and it reminds me of something that you said earlier about, how rare it is to find. Here we have this incredible body of knowledge that women's studies, gender studies has given us, and yet here we have this culture that has still creates a lot of tension amongst women. So the finding those circles of supportive women, or even just women mentors, someone who will really invest in you, someone who will really have your back and be looking out for your own best interest rather than seeing you as a threat, or seeing that there's a competition. That's really rare, and I think it's a little bit hard to understand, because we have all this literature, we have all this language around equity and women, and yet we're doing this to each other.
Yes. I mean, when you think about it, my husband always laughs. I'll get dolled up for a night out, and it's not for men. You don't even realize it. You're like, I'm dolling myself up for my girls. It's not, my husband's not going to notice my new lipstick, but my girlfriend will. She'll be like, hey, where'd you get that? Like, a lot of the stuff we do, our nails and stuff, my husband doesn't care if I have long nails or what color my nails are. Or, they don't look at that. Other women do, though. And they're like, oh, your nails look great. Or they know, like, women notice. And we do things, and I think we do it for other women, not for men, not for, or whoever, you know what I mean? We do it, I wish I could say I do it for myself a lot of the times, but if I was really doing it for myself, I would never go out with a stitch of makeup on my face. It's a pain in the butt. I don't want to look, but I also, don't want to look like a ghoul either, but it's a fine line. But yeah, we do a lot for the approval of other women that I don't even think we realize we do.
Yeah. I just, I have to ask, I wonder why it is that we don't lift one another up as much as we could. And it's hard to admit, like your professor who was pushing you, I think it's hard to admit for me to recognize that, with all that advancement and with all of the knowledge that we have, we are still perpetuating the same models of competition versus collaboration, of this hierarchical, patriarchal. We are acting it out by doing these things to one another. So it's quite ironic that we've come so far only, and to be blind to the fact that that is actually what these attitudes and these competitive and cutting remarks, like we should not be cutting each other down or judging one another. I mean, across the board for all human beings, but there should be circles that you can find with one another that just help you come into who you are, that are your champions, not your stumbling block, instead of making you second guess yourself and feeling worthless. So I think that's really essential to mental health.
Agreed. Absolutely.
It's hard in this world, and so those mentors are really powerful, and I'm so glad that you've had them. And it really also makes me think, listening to you, about how I want to be in the world. How I want to be with my women friends and women and female students and male students as well, students of all genders and various ways that they present, but just being present and not ever holding anyone down or cutting them down.
And it's actually really easy. All you have to do is be kind. It's not hard. You know what I mean? Like, if I think something kind about someone, like, you look amazing today, or I'll say it, you know what I mean? Like, I'll do it, and 99% of the time, they feel really good. You just made someone's day. Like, it's so much easier to make someone's day than to ruin it. And it's so surprising sometimes when you have those people that always have to say something negative. It's just like, oh, okay. But if you try to, and one of the things I absolutely believe is, and it harm none, and what comes back to you comes back times 3. So if you put out kindness and you do, what you can in this world from a place of good, it will come back to you. If you're mean and you're nasty and you try to hurt people, it will come back to you. So I mean, that's kind of just how I go through my life. And everyone messes up, and I've definitely said things in traffic that probably weren't the kindest, but it happens, and you move on. But if you really do make that effort to just try to be kind, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm still working on that behind the wheel thing. That's a tough one. That's a tall order.
Usually it's my fault, so I can't really say anything. I'm usually the one getting beeped at, so I'm like, oh, sorry, my bad.
I was just in the zone listening to my audio book or whatever it is. Yep. So you have some, will you be doing, you mentioned Samhain, you mentioned, this is your favorite time of year. This is the season. And so will you be preparing rituals, or you'll be doing them all on Zoom? Or do you go out into nature and do things for yourself during this week? Or what do you do to celebrate?
I do both, actually. I will definitely spend some time. I usually just stay in my yard. I find it so peaceful. I really enjoy it. I bought my first house ever this year. This is my yard, Thank you so much. And I have a path at the end of my yard that goes into the woods just perfectly. So I usually leave offerings there at the end of the path. I've always felt that way. It's really pretty. And then I will have my altar set up, and I think we talked about this a little bit. I have also, I put up an ofrenda. And even though I am white, I have found that to be a beautiful tradition. And Samhain is a tradition of respect and paying that respect to your ancestors. And I feel like that is a beautiful tradition. So included in my altar, I will also have pictures of my loved ones and candles going and flowers and little offerings, probably some candy. My dad loved chocolate, so I always put little things like that on it. So I will definitely have that. And for the whole weekend, I have a meditation with my group. There is an in-person ritual in Cambridge, but I will not be going yet because I'm not quite ready for large groups of people yet. So I will be enjoying the meditation online and then doing my own ritual as well. So that'll be what I will be celebrating. And of course, I will dress in my full gothy garb, which is my favorite.
Nice.
Once a goth, always a goth. That's me. So.
Will you take a picture and send it to me? I would love that.
Sure.
By the way, you told me I had to watch Coco, and I did. So I did watch that last weekend, and it was great fun. I enjoyed that, and I thought I'd seen it, but I had not. So that Pixar, if anyone hasn't seen it, that was a great one.
Oh, it's so good. I'll be doing that as well. Yep, I'll be watching that as well. I watched that on Halloween weekend as well. That is such one of my favorite Pixar movies, actually. Although all Pixar makes me cry. So
I'm going with my husband to see Hocus Pocus at the they're showing a special showing of that in Foxborough. So that's one of my favorite Halloween movies.
As it should be.
Yes. I smell children.
I love Hocus Pocus. I watch that every year too. It doesn't get old. I like Bette Midler. So.
Oh, who doesn't? So it's women having fun with each other.
Yeah.
You can tell they're having great fun with that. So.
Yep.
And I have had great fun with you. You're always a joy. Thank you so much for just being so open and honest and vulnerable, Kristine. I appreciate you. And I'm here to help lift you up as you always lift me up. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this, and it was really a pleasure being invited. So thank you. And like I said, women mentors, I think I might have found another one in you. So I'm excited for us to stay friends and to kind of travel these roads together a little bit and learn from each other. So I'm really excited to have you as my new friend. So thank you.
Likewise. So thank you so much.
You take care. Happy Halloween and happy Samhain.
You have been listening to InterSpace with Angelina Avadano. My heartfelt gratitude and appreciation goes to my husband, David Needs, Senior Production Engineer. If you would like to learn more about me or my work, look for me on Facebook and Instagram, Dr. A. Avadano with Cicada Personal Metamorphosis. That's Cicada with a Y, CYCADA. Or you can email me at dr.aavedano@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. This is Angelina reminding you that we're all connected.